is what education has become, is it worth it enough to me? That level of like exhaustion and burnout that I was feeling, like, was that enough, to keep me in it? And it wasn't.
What's going on, everybody? I am Miles, and if you stumbled upon this video, trust me, you are in for a treat. This channel is called For Regular People Only, and today I'm gonna have 8 educators come on in this panel discussion, and they're gonna talk a little bit about some of their experiences, both positive and negative. Trust me, you're going to wanna check this out from start to finish. If you find any value in this content, please make sure that you like and subscribe, and consider coming back and checking out more of the videos. Without further ado, let's get into it. Enjoy.
My name is Christy Oliva. I was a middle school teacher for 15 years, and 5 years ago, I decided to leave the classroom when I had my own kids, and really just wanted to change my career into something that was more enjoyable. I was getting burnt out, so I moved into instructional design, which is building online courses, and now I work as a program manager.
My name is Mark Gibson Jr. I've been in education since 2014. I've done everything K through 8, spent a little time in middle school, and now I'm back in elementary as a math coach. This is wrapping up my 11th year in education, and right now I just share the space between being a coach and kind of nationally speaking in different conferences around the United States.
Dr. Andres D. Risher. I am currently a history teacher. I have been in this profession for 27 years, and I still love it. I've had every position in a school building, from the teacher to the principal, and I'm back in the classroom, and this is what I was made to do.
My name is Erica Battle, and I actually began teaching as a long-term substitute in 2006 and discovered that I actually loved education. I was actually in a traditional school setting until 2017, and in 2017, I left the classroom as an educational consultant, and I have been consulting ever since.
My name is Maya Stafford. I've been an educator for almost 10 years now. This is my 3rd year working with pre-K special ed.
I'm Jonathan Bullion. I've been in education now for 7 years, from a teacher to a coach, now and an assistant principal at a charter network in Nashville. I've been in a lot of different spaces, but I've been in Nashville now for the last 3 years.
My name is Dr. Ronald Sickles Jr. I've been in education since 2011. I worked in a lot of different locations, whether it's Milwaukee, Jacksonville, Florida, Tulsa, Oklahoma, now here in Nashville, Tennessee. I have done a lot of different things in education, whether it's operations, or whether it's family engagement, 1st grade, 2nd grade, high school, and currently serving as an assistant principal.
My name is Jennifer Keir, and I was a high school English teacher for 11 years. And then also when I had my first child, I left the classroom, was also getting burnt out, and am now doing social media marketing.
Have the reasons that inspired you to become a teacher or administrator been strong enough to keep you in the profession, or have they evolved over time?
That impact and wanting to make a difference is still there, but it has evolved into helping other educators, whether it is leaders, teachers, instructional coaches. I do work with superintendents and district officials, recognize and understand that it's so important to lead from a lens of social emotional wellness. And when we lead through that lens of social emotional wellness, we get to holistically affect our student population. And so why I started and maintained my stand in education was because of the student impact, but now I see that it is helping other educators recognize and realize the impact that we have on students, whether it is positive or negative. That impact will be there.
For me, it starts back in 8th grade. I had a coach. I was supposed to go to the, city school of my hometown. But a coach at the predominantly white school asked me to come play ball there. And he sat in my mom's living room and just told her, we send people to college every year. So if you want him to have a way out, this is it. It's gonna be uncomfortable, but this is it. And so from my 9th grade year to my senior year, he drove me to school and took me home every single day. And so as I started to choose a career, I knew it was going to be in public service. I was like, I have to pay my younger self back. Similar to things that was mentioned earlier, but I have to pay my younger self back. So I started off and trying to take the medical route, realized I didn't have the stomach for it. Got a education. But thing it's definitely evolved over time. It started off with just being about paying myself back, or paying that kid that had potential to get out of not the best circumstances, to give them a way out through education. It started off with that, but now it's really evolved and gone a little bit more into just the total impact of just helping to build self-sufficient and like again, it was mentioned before, holistic children that are aware, that can problem solve, that can think. And then again, coming full circle, it actually helps me to evolve. It helps me to adapt. It's probably the closest thing to being a husband and a father that I think helps me grow as a person.
I've had to evolve with the profession as well. I mean, it has its ups and downs in terms of the way the system is set up. But at the end of the day, when I look at the 27 years that I've been in education, the one key thing that doesn't change is building relationships with students. And so from the time I started in 2000 to 2025 right now, it's the same practice. And as long as you maintain that core of building relationships so that they can fulfill their dreams and not be at the bottoms, or, you know, be in a position where they can continue to excel from a youth to an adult, you know, I want to be a part of that. And so the reasons that I got into this profession was, you know, solely based upon my enjoyment of learning and being that kid that likes to learn, but at the same time, having a couple of teachers that just stood out and made an impact in my life that I've always been trying to pay it forward. I'm always trying to pay it forward. And I teach my young students, and especially those that I mentor, those young boys, is, you know, I give it to you and then you give it to somebody else. And if we keep paying it forward, you know, we're going to make a difference. And so I'm always driven by that right there.
My reasons for becoming a teacher, which a lot of that had to do with like wanting to help people and wanting to, you know, help students to be successful. You know, I, of course, wanted to do that. I still want to do that now, even though I'm not in, you know, the profession anymore. But I had to kind of ask myself, like, is what education has become, you know, is it worth it enough to me? You know, are that level of like exhaustion and burnout that I was feeling, like, was that enough, you know, to keep me in it? And it wasn't.
What is the most significant factor driving teachers to leave the profession? And can you share an example from your experience or observations that highlights this issue?
I think one of the main reasons a lot of people leave education is burnout, mainly because of the excessive workloads that continue to grow year after year. The hours continue to get longer and longer, however, the pay does not increase. And then lack of leaders in the building that do a job of maintaining the humanity of the person behind the jobs. Oftentimes people in leadership only see the job and all the requirements that go along with that, without recognizing that there's a person that's actually doing the job, which makes doing the job even more difficult. So between the lack of pay, the increased workload, I think those are the reasons why a lot of people continue to leave education.
Huh. So I actually help other teachers leave the classroom now. And the number one reason I hear is overwhelm. The amazing amount of hats that a teacher has to wear. You have to be a counselor, sometimes a parent, now a bodyguard, and, you know, put yourself in danger's way for students. So, and like you said, the pay is not increasing with that risk. So there's, you know, teachers are just looking for another place where they feel valued, because to your point, there's not enough of the value on teachers. Now, I saw a meme the other day where it talked about, like, in the past and present of how teachers were treated. And initially it was the parent pointing at the kid and saying, why is this a C or why is this an F? And now it's them going to the teacher and saying, why is this an F? And it's just too much.
I think a lot of educators are leaving simply because of the pay. it's not enough. Especially like we're in this inflation, everything just keeps going up. People are having to work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And me personally, I'm having to work 2 jobs just to make ends meet, and it's not okay. Like I'm burnt out, I'm stressed out, and it's overwhelming. Getting more, like in the pre-K world, special ed world, you're getting more kids added on to your caseload every single day. If not every day, it's every hour. And there's kids that's not diagnosed that really need to be diagnosed. And so now you're like trying to figure out ways to help this kid, and now you just keep getting stressed and overworked, and it's just not enough. Like the pay is overwhelming, you're burnt out. Like on the weekends, you don't even want to do anything anymore, but just sit at home in silence because you heard your name all day, every day. And now it's just like, I'm burnt out. What do I do next? So if I can make more money elsewhere, then I'm going to go there and not be stressed out and overwhelmed.
It's just too much. Like that's kind of what comes to mind for me. Not only, is it just too much, but like that level of exhaustion that I think teachers feel, and then try to go home and not be able to, be present with their own family and their own children, I think is very frustrating. And I don't even know that like as you're in it, like that you realize like the toll that it takes, like that exhaustion, and just like until it's like the summer and you're halfway through and you're like, oh my gosh, like I finally feel, a little bit more like a human again. So I think that is definitely one piece. And I think another piece is just like the amount of things that teachers experience that just like don't make sense. Like at the classroom level, at the school level, district, state, national, like all of it. There are so many things that we just have to like accept and be like, it just is what it is. And it just like is this way. And you're constantly questioning, but like it just doesn't make sense. And I think that over time, at least for me, was very frustrating and eventually led me to say I just can't do it anymore.
I think there's also, like they bring in like numbers, so your return on investment. And so if I am talking to an 18-year-old kid that's going into college, that is about to potentially take out like a lot of loans or pay out of pocket or to do whatever they have to do to get an education degree, when we think about where we are just as a society, a couple of years ago, I would have been like, yes, absolutely. I would have had a very concrete answer for that student. And when I think about teaching as a profession, we name like the pay is not increased, especially when compared to other careers that have like similar levels of whether you have to get a specific certification, you have to go back and get another master's degree, you have to go back and get another like state mandated license to say that you are cleared to do this job. In terms of like pay scales, other professions require additional amounts of education, teaching has to like match those pay scales that.
I'm still in my career and I love what I do. I love it so much that I'm actually going back to school to get my master's in a certification in special ed, but it's just, I love it. I'm very passionate about it. It's just, at times it do get overwhelming. It's like, dang, do I really want to stay in this or do I want to continue and see the growth in my students? And sure enough, here I am still here because I love what I do, even though like the pay is not where it needs to be. I still stay because I love it.
But you know what else is powerful about this conversation is I know what it feels like when you could have intentionally built a relationship with a community of kids. Like, let me tell you something. Nowadays, like y'all come into the system and you can't even take kids on a field trip. I know what it's like when you were required to take kids on a field trip. I know what it was like when his family don't have money, he can't go on a field trip, okay, he can't go, right? That may have been wrong back then, but it was kind of like, okay, that's your situation. But the system, like there was a freedom to like make a difference in kids' lives. And I think that exhaustion and all of this other stuff that's in the environment is like corrupted to where it's so policy driven. The lesson plans are scripted, I don't understand how people really teach today, because that's not how I teach, So I'm aging out, but I'm not aging out. Like discipline, classroom management, boom, yeah, we're good. But in terms of like enforcing testing to like get kids to this finish line, you know, it's like, man, that's the part where I'm aging out. Ain't no thing. It's different.
I wasn't gonna answer either, but now I got thoughts. I got some.
So that's partly what made me leave education. I became a single mom unexpectedly of 2 kids, and I was $100 a month away from being able to apply for welfare. Not only was that frustrating because it felt like I should have been able to, get it because I was making so little. I was using cloth diapers, cloth wipes, wasn't buying any paper products because I couldn't afford to. And yet I was a college graduate and I couldn't afford to keep up my family. So I knew I had to do something else. So I still have that passion for education, but it wasn't sustainable for me as a single mom anymore.
You know what's interesting about that is that it highlights that it's really bigger than being exhausted in the education system. It's really the life system, because we were taught, go to college and this world was going to be ready for us. But there's been an evolution of the world, and our gift, for many of us, our gift is not appreciated the way it used to be.
This is a layered question, because while one person leaves, it's not, you can't just make it exclusive for the entire profession, because there are other professions that you can leave and go to and feel the same exhaustion and overwhelm. And so it's just so interesting that when we begin to talk about education, everyone immediately goes to overwhelm, exhaustion. And, I do agree about the lack of pay. We could be compensated better, but it's so many layers to that question that it's just not really just one answer, because while one person leaves can be a totally different reason than why another person leaves. And so when we begin to assign specific reasons as to why there's a teacher shortage and why people are leaving, we again begin to make education live up to the negative connotation that people assign it. When I've been in tons of schools, I bring a perspective from a variety of just education spaces where teachers leave because of poor leadership. And then I've been to other schools where, same district, but teachers stay because of great supportive leadership. And so we can't just say it's because of the pay, because there are teachers that stay with the pay because they feel that they are supported. They do feel as if they are living in their passion and fulfilling intrinsic need to support and help others. So we can't just say that it's because of this, and this, why teachers leave, because there are layers to this.
A lot of teachers talk about wanting to leave their schools and things like that, but then it's like they're shamed if they want to do that because, oh, you're leaving the children. Yeah. You're supposed to be here for the kids. You said you want to be a teacher to help the kids mold, do this, that, and the third, but then when you're talking about your personal well-being, your personal health and things like that, principals, the leaders in the building like, oh, well, you're leaving the child again. So now they're not going to learn. Now they're not going to do this. Now they're not going to do that. And that also becomes taxing, which adds to that mental strain that you're already expressing and dealing with.
In our school, we have a great leadership, and we've had a few people leave only because they had to get a new job to pay more to make ends meet there, or they simply had a baby and want to stay at home with their child. But every school is different.
What is the biggest challenge students face today, and how can schools better support them? I think one big challenge that's coming to mind is like over-testing, over-assessment. I think to a point we've gotten kind of lost the plot, and there's like testing is getting away of kids learning after a weird way. And I want to say I believe in there should be a standardized way of like assessing what students know and like how much they've grown. But when it gets to the point where that is, when you come back from Christmas and like all teachers are focused on is getting kids like prepared for the end-of-year state test, not because it's an opportunity for them to like show all the things that they know, but it's like a way for schools to like accrue funding. And if they don't, then your school closes. I think it becomes very like a weird, borderline toxic environment where now we are prepping and ensure kids like know how to answer the multiple choice questions, but without them having like the firm and relationship guided like grasp on the content.
When I was young, there was a balance of fireman, doctor, lawyer, you know. We knew that there was some options, military, going to college, and I don't know what the future, we say AI, but what's in place in the school system right now that really gets them ready for the more advanced digital world. So that concerns me because, again, I think right now our kids, particularly our urban youth, pretty much see sports and entertainment as their only option. And we've lost that career development, you know, that annual day where we would meet different professions and so forth. That's gone. So in terms of like, okay, what are we pushing these kids to be able to do other than test?
It's hard to first prioritize one above any of the others, but I think education, I don't know if it's the testing being prioritized at high stakes, but I think that we're missing teaching. And I know we say life skills and that's really nebulous and what that means, but I think we're missing like executive functioning skills that are taught through the standards. Instead of we're just teaching the standards and assessing the standards, but instead of those things of planning, prioritizing your steps that you're going to take, being flexible, problem solving, really we're teaching all those things through standards. So it doesn't matter what I teach.
Education is a business.
Yes.
And a business needs certain factors in order for it to continue to run. And assessments in education is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And so we are feeding the beast, but at the expense of who? The kids in front of us each and every day. And so when we begin to think about the challenges, it is, are we going back to the basics? You know, like ed tech, you know, that is another big business. And I know one of the questions was, are teachers obsolete? No, teachers are more important and necessary now than they've ever been.
All right, so do current diversity and inclusion efforts in schools genuinely address systematic issues, or are they superficial gestures with little impact?
We use representation a lot, DEI, and all those things are getting thrown out. But it's simply, I go back to like Maslow's hierarchy of need, that the first is just to feel safe. Well, the first is just essential needs like food, shelter. So sometimes when you're in impoverished school or title schools, you can kind of mitigate that because you got free and reduced lunch. So at least you're safe and at least you have food. So you expedite that process. And then the next one is to feel safe. Sometimes you just feel safe when someone looks like you. So when you have an upset day, you can just go to someone who looks like you. But if you don't have any representation in school, that kid who's crying, that kindergarten kid who's crying from August to October, it's really just a longer process to feel safe. And years ago, really before I was even born, they used to let the parents sit on the outside of the wall and kind of watch, and then the kid could go get a hug, could go hug their mom, and can kind of matriculate back into the classroom, and then the parent kind of eventually left. Well, now it's just dump off. On the first day, you have the boohoo breakfast, and then that's it. So representation does help that process because, oh, she just looks like Big Mama. Like she just look, so at least I can go get that hug and feel safe. When you can expedite the hierarchy of needs, then you can actually get to the learning sooner. And if you look at the last 10 years in education, how the demographics have changed by the students, the staff has actually stayed the same across the United States. So we still have one population teaching, one population is teaching a rise in demographics that that I would say most parts of the country have had little exposure with, or little proximity to. And so some of that burnout is simply just the roller coaster of culture shock.
I would argue that having a teaching staff that has not reflected like the student population actually does more harm in the long run. And so we talk about that people aren't coming into teaching. And I think one contributing factor is like, I didn't have any Black teachers when I had like all of my K-12.
You talk about inclusion efforts, me working with special ed. Sometimes I think that the system fails our special ed kids. Only because, I guess starting young in pre-K, you have those kids that come in who are nonverbal, who are having these behavior issues, who need to be in a setting for them. And then they put them in this gen ed setting and it's not made for them. They can't grow in that setting that they're in, and they need to be in a setting that's for them. Like you don't have the extra support to be a one-on-one all day with a kid. And that student needs to be somewhere where they can grow. And it's hard. Like now working with special ed kids, it's hard.
We haven't adapted to the growing population of diversity. Like this is not what it was, 50 years ago. So we're behind, and the system, hopefully you want to believe that it would come up with some way to recruit more to get the diversity staff as needed.
Also, that stigmatization about what an IEP means.
Yeah.
When you think about the people who are not working in education, they're like, oh, I don't want this label for my child. I'm not going to sign off. I'm not going to do this to get all the resources and support for my child. Not recognizing that oftentimes that's setting your child
behind. Yes, yeah.
And then they go back to like the systems. So when I think about the systems, okay, so now I can't get the support for this child. I'm in the classroom with all these gen ed students, not getting the supports that I need. So now I'm falling further and further behind. Then when you add a multilingual learner onto that, someone who's not learning English as their first language, now even further behind, so I can't access the education that's in front of me.
I also think that the parents are failing their own kid when it comes to IEPs and getting the services that they need, because, I don't want my child to be labeled. I don't want my child to have this, that, and the third, but really your child need this, that, and the third to better themselves. They do not care. Like you'll sit in IEP meetings, testing, and you meet with the parent, you're telling the parent, okay, well, your child has qualified for X, Y, and Z. Well, no, I don't want it. Then that's on you.
Because of the, promotion retention law, whatever the name's changed to, they are almost pushing for the IEP or the 504 just to get that exemption out of being held back. So it's just
Their protection.
Yep.
it's on both the ends.
Yeah.
As a parent right now, just not experiencing great things in the state of education, and my kids go to Williamson County schools, and I still am not satisfied. My kids are biracial, and there aren't many people like them at their school, and that bothers me. So one of the solutions I've come up with is I'm actually opening my own micro school, and with my kids in mind, but it's going to be project-based. There's not going to be any desks. My kids shouldn't have to sit all day. I don't have to sit all day. There's things like that I'm really passionate about, that my kids should be able to play to learn, discover things on their own instead of things just being told to them. There are so many things that I learned in being in a multiracial relationship that I never learned in school. And if I had been able to learn those things in school, it would have changed my whole life.
I think the state of education currently is not great. I'm so passionate about education, and even though I've left, I still have that passion, but I feel like students deserve more. I feel like teachers deserve more. And I really feel like education needs to be addressed. Our system needs to be addressed at the national level. And it needs to be changed. There are there are issues, there are things that are happening that are not okay, and they need to be addressed.
You know, when I think about the state of education, it is going to evolve because technology is going to force it to evolve whether we want to or not. But then I go back to listening about kids still not knowing the basic fundamentals of reading, of writing, of arithmetic. You remember the reading, writing, and arithmetic. And I think that it should not evolve to a place where we still are not teaching kids the basics and the foundations. One of the things that I've noticed being able to be in classrooms all over the country is writing is becoming a lost art. Being able to do simple mental calculations is becoming a lost art. Being able to write in cursive is becoming obsolete and a lost art. But my question is, should we forego those things just because technology evolves? And I think that even though education will continue to evolve, if we lose those basic fundamental skills and those foundational skills that we learn through play, learning how to manipulate our hands, learning how to communicate with each other through play, is the evolution of education. Who is that going to benefit?
When I started teaching, kids struggle with basic math facts, right? No child left behind and race to the top. I go back into the classroom 20 years later, guess what? Same thing. So I'm sitting here and I'm teaching, and at this point, I'm learning how to invest. And so I said, you know what? None of these standards teach our kids how to manipulate money to, put it to work. And so I started a program, and I've been building it out. Math is money. Because 20 years ago, I used to tell kids, man, if you can do math, you can put money in your pocket. Okay, so this is how I'm attacking the system so that, again, paying it forward. So it's going to evolve, but we got to do things individually to try to chip away to make it better.
We have assessed so much that kids don't understand the value of what they're being taught. They equate what they're learning to be able to pass a test versus equating what they're learning as a life skill.
If I can make that C, I'm good.
And that's where we're losing it. Again, when I think about my book and I think about creating a trust-centered classroom, it's important to create that trust-centered classroom, because now when I tell you, hey, you really are going to need this skill, I can believe you because I trust you, and I trust that you wouldn't lead me in a way that's not meant for my good. And I think because technology has evolved so much, our students forget that it was someone who knew those basic fundamental skills that created that program. And if you don't have those fundamentals, you are you become a slave to those who have them.